Hello, hello, and welcome to another Pilates Hour with Polestar. And today I have a very special friend, a brother from another mother, Viktor Uygan. And Viktor, it's awesome to have you back on the Pilates Hour. So good to see you.
Great to be back, Brent. Thank you for having me again.
You're welcome. We've got some exciting things to talk about today. You know, I have this incredible passion of subconscious learning and things that are happening spontaneously and how we can use our environments and our cues to really facilitate that internal learning. So today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite tools. I don't endorse a lot of tools. So first of all, I always have to say that, in 30 plus years, I could say that I literally have only endorsed like 2 or 3 tools. People, that it's the OOV, and that it's the Konnector with Viktor, and then a couple other little things. So Viktor, as we get started here, let's dive in. And one of the things that is most interesting to me, as I mentioned, is this idea of spontaneous learning of movement. Like, how do we create environments? And you've been incredibly creative and innovative. We've known each other for over 20 plus years in the industry. You've come from a professional dance career. You worked with, in Italy for a while on, coming from the gyrotonic and then into I always forget the name of the
Pino Carbone.
Pino Carbone. Yeah, I remember Pino in a conference that we got to meet, and you were there demonstrating for him. Yes. And then, becoming a Pilates certified teacher, and then becoming a master educator for Balanced Body. I mean, you've really, grown and become well known internationally for your creativity. And probably the most credible one that most people recognize is the Konnector. But the Konnector is not the only thing. I think our first conversation was about something with a foot corrector, looking at increasing mobility of the foot, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And then you've used TheraBand as well as ways to just create incredible proprioceptive experiences for your customers. So tell us a little bit about, how you see your journey evolving. That's sort of my vision of it from the outside as a good friend. But where do you see yourself going? What do you see what have been key kind of keystones in your career that have led you to where you are today?
All right. Thank you. It's a deep question, so I'm going to make it as short as I can. But I believe everything starts with me moving as a dancer and me trying to be as best what I did, it was dancing. And during the journey, as you know, not just for dancing, any type of athlete, when you're trying to acquire to be best, you shoot for the best. It's not easy. It's very tough. And you've been told no, or you've been told that you're not good enough or you're not talented. And the word of talented is really frustrated me. I could understand you're not tall enough. Okay, I'm not tall enough. I can't see it. Or, you're not strong enough. Okay, I need to be stronger. But what is the talent? What are you trying to say that I'm not talented? Why are you calling somebody else talent and I'm not talented and you give up on me? That really frustrated me. So I was told that I wasn't talented. I was told that I'm not going to be a dancer. I was told I'm not going to be a professional. And I did not give up. I wanted to become a dancer. I wanted to live in the United States. I wanted to dance in the United States. And I wanted to become a principal Pilates dancer. Like, I wanted to be on stage as a prince and take the last bow. And so teachers will mention, do this. And there's 10 people. 3 people will do it, and the 7 cannot. And they called it the 3 people who did it in the first time, okay, you talented, and the 7, okay, you're not talented. So my thing was, can I learn what the talented person could achieve in the first time they tried? That could be a technique. Can I create a technique? Can I create tools to educate for those called non-talented and make them a talented person? That's what I went after. And while I was trying that, I realized that I was using a lot of external resources, external stimuli to make me understand, to make me feel successful, or to make me take to a place that it's closest as I can feel to do the right thing, to do the what teacher asks. And I found a lot of success in my own career by doing that. And when I start to teach movement to others, I realized I wasn't alone. A lot of people actually feels not good, not talented, not flexible, or they will ask question, where am I supposed to feel this? Like you could be doing a clear movement patterns that working specific muscle groups, but the client might go like, okay, where am I supposed to feel this? And to help them, I brought the TheraBands. That was my first journey to use that. Why don't I connect their limbs in the mat work or in the reformer so they could have the freedom of movement, but responsibilities to each others. Each limb will have a responsibilities to each other. So they have to make a decision. When you move, you're going to pull me forward. I'm going to come with you. I'm going to stay my ground, or I'm going to move away from you. So they had to basically make a decision and realize what their action does to the body.
You know, it's interesting. I love this idea because we look at a couple things you brought up. One is quality of movement that people are looking for. What is that quality that defines you have talent, you don't have talent? And two is, and I think even more importantly, is the acquisition of the desired movement. And I think of like Laban notation and looking at movement in space, right? So, you know, before we had video, which I think is really important to understand, is we had this spherical space that Laban notated, and later on Bartenia fundamentals, but it was looking at where is your body in space and in relationship, and how does it connect and how does it relate? And you think in the dance world in particular, a little different from sports, that we train so hard to have proper line, right? We train so hard to have fluidity, and that our fluidity and our lines matched those around us, and that we could deal with this spacing concept of where our space is and our bodies in space. And you could practice for years and still be very incapable of appreciating not only your own space, but sort of like a swarm intelligence kind of thing, where what's your space with the person next to you? What's the space or the energy between you? And these are all things that, you know, we look at in, you know, body work, and in particularly modalities of movement that are interacting with other people and looking at how that space works. And one of the things that, you know, to me is so important is I remember taking classes and they refused to let us use mirrors. So they covered the mirrors up so that we weren't relying on our eyes. And you did a trick not long ago that was, and maybe we could do it with everybody here, but the trick of, you know, our eyes are going to process what we see, but that's one source of sensory. We have inner ear sense of sensory and hearing, and we have touch and tactile and proprioception. Why don't you do your little trick with everybody as far as the hands and what you see versus what you feel?
All right. So everybody basically lift your hands together and put them together. And you're going to cross them first, and then cross your fingers like that too. Yep. So they are first crossed, and then you hold them. Once you hold them together, bend your elbows, bring your hand down and over, and they're in front of you. So then from here, just look at your fingers. Pick one finger and trying to move that finger and put it down. And pick another finger, move and down. Keep trying different parts, different movement. And you'll notice probably some of the fingers that you're looking, your first try was not successful. You end up moving another finger, or you might move two fingers like this, right? So there now, do you see it? It's not successful, right? It's not 100%. Some work, some did not work. So now try this. From here, with your nose, touch to a finger and then move that finger. The success rate goes dramatically up. You know immediately which finger to move because you stimulated that muscle, and that's the efferent information that your skin senses. And when the skin senses that information, it sends message as an efferent message to your nervous system. Then your nervous system sends efferent message to correct muscle groups to fire that muscle. So now I don't have to rely on my visual senses in this case. I could do this closed eyes. I could close my eyes and find the finger, touch it, and I could move that finger. I didn't even see my finger was.
Yeah.
Because of the efferent of information of my skin senses to my nervous system, and my nervous system senses the correct muscle groups to fire.
Yeah, and just added on that, the brain doesn't send a message necessarily, like saying, oh, I need to contract that extensor digitorum longus of the pointer finger. It is the task, right?
Task.
So you have the task in our head, right? The task is there. I want to be able to, move the finger that I'm touching. And the brain just knows it's going to move that finger. And that's the fascinating thing. And that's why, when you talked about earlier, you also said you can't just teach a set of muscles to work and expect it to result in a performance or in a task. No. And making things more task specific. So when we look at this, one of the incredible powers that we have in the Pilates environment is this constant sense of feedback coming into us, right? So we've talked a lot in this particular webinar about things like, having mobility and having control of those things. Learning movement requires that proprioception that we're talking about, right? So the tactile on the nose, right, gave a tactile cue to an afferent. And just to clarify, afferent means it's going towards the nervous system. Efferent means it comes away from the central nervous system. So all messages that we have coming in, whether it's our vision, our hearing, our sense of proprioception and touch and deep touch or pain, all of those come in. We don't really feel pain in the limb, but the map in the brain identifies what we're feeling or what we're experiencing. And then the task gives out the command of how we respond. And even to take it a little bit deeper, this week, even earlier on Tuesday, I was teaching pathophysiology at University of St. Augustine, and again reiterating this idea of how our body maintains balance and equilibrium, how it maintains equilibrium in all of our systems, so our cardiovascular system, our hormonal system, and it's always through this same process. There are receptors in our body that provide information to our central nervous system that provides an action. And that action could be releasing a hormone to maybe speed the heart up or to slow it down. It could be to ovulate. It could be to have more energy. It could be to have more motivation. Those are all things that are responses from the central nervous system. As far as movement, it's a motor response, right? And that motor response is continually adjusting. So even if we did this, this trick, and you move the finger, and you might realize that you over-recruited, right? Well, the sensory of that muscle goes back to the spinal cord and says that was more muscle than what they needed, and it becomes more efficient because as human beings, we seek efficiency. And this leads us perfectly into what the Konnector does, right? So, I remember asking you questions about the Konnector in front of a group that we taught here at the farm early on, and talking about like who would not want to have the Konnector's facilitation in movement, and where would it not work? And you basically said people who don't want to learn to move, people that don't want to understand that. So let's dive in a little bit and tell us a little bit about how you came up with the Konnector idea, how the Konnector actually does increase that afferent input into the nervous system and again, I would resort to say it's spontaneous input coming in, and the task then you realize that there's an asymmetry, and your goal is to correct the asymmetry or to accomplish the task, even though There's complete freedom in the limbs that we don't have typically in the straps, right? So the feet and straps in a traditional reformer, and I'll have you demonstrate a little bit later, you don't have that ability to have one limb independent of the other, or the same with the upper extremities. And with the Konnector, you do. And why is that important?
Perfect. So I'm going to explain how my journey started. I'm an instructor. I love reformer. I start to teach my clients. I want to do my best. I want to teach them what I learned, the way that I learned. But soon, a couple years later, I realized I'm not teaching Pilates for myself. I'm teaching movement Pilates for individual needs, for the person in front of me. And I need to personalize, and I need to make it functional for their daily activities or for daily goals. So for me, in Pilates straps, original straps, the options were so limited. I felt like I wasn't doing full potential. We did exercises like bend and extend, which moving the hip joint and knee joint. We did up and down. We did external rotation. And we did circles. That was it. It's like 4, 5, 6, 7 ways to move with the straps, and then we were done, and then we might repeat the same thing with the arms, right? So that was our options. I said, okay, my clients, human, I'm teaching human, and they move contralateral. Which type of movement I can give it to them? Oh, perfect, mat work. Mat work has freedom, has no limitations. I can actually make them work contralateral, bilateral, unilateral, any way that I want. So I ask my clients to perform mat exercises. I hear many times, where am I supposed to feel this? Where am I supposed to feel this? For example, as easy as maybe we're doing a chest lift, I will see the knees will come in, or the knees will go out, or they will do just abdominals instead of abdominals. The issues like that, I could cue them, tactile cue them, but at the end, when they went home, I think they were still lost. So I said, what can I do? I want to connect their limbs. I want to use a long band and connect their limbs together. So you could do this, the loop on the feet or on the hand. I have many different ways to use the band, but I'll just explain to you. Here we go. I put the bands, and now when they lay down on their back, the left limbs connected with the right hand, the left hand connected with the left leg. So the movement that I'm doing from here, when I push my left leg forward, clearly my arms knows where they need to be, or if they need to hold here, or they need to resist away from each other. And I can change this connection as easy as by putting an X in here. Now my left leg is talking to my right arm instead of my left arm. Now it's a contralateral connection. And many different exercises. One of beloved and hated exercise of hundreds. It's clearly now there's a reason that you're using your arms and it's pumping. This is again, people feel it. Okay, I have to basically support my legs, and I have to create this movement patterns from my arms away from my legs. And just like you said, everything that I do with bands, it was never about squeeze this, extend this. It was always about task. I will say, for example, trying to not change the distance of the band, trying to stretch the band. It's just basic task movement. It creates magic in this. Then I said, okay, this is great. It's working. but I miss reformer. I love reformer. I want to do things with the reformer. So then what I did, I brought my band work to the reformer. So now I can be actually doing basic leg work, and I can involve my arms, my upper body with my lower body. I can ask different tasks, for example, hundreds, I could do it in here. I could try to create connections, for example, from here, I can grab a band and I can open, so I'm working the adductors while I'm doing the single leg work. And the arm's still involved. Many different ways that I could use the band involving the reformer. Then I said,
you know, I'm going to stop you for a second. What I love about that is, again, human movement has so many different multiplanar directions in our task. You go to open a door, you're walking, you're running, you're jumping, you're canoeing. I mean, whatever activity we're doing, it always is multiplanar. And one of the challenges we've had, like you're talking about in the Pilates sometimes, is getting into multiplanar movement. And not just multiplanar movement, what I want everybody to appreciate is you were creating multiplanar load, right? So there's a task, which you're going to do, right? You want to maintain that leg in space. You want to maintain the relation between the arm and the leg. But to do that, there is going to be a shift in the load. And that load is what teaches us how to become stronger. That load is what teaches us how to be more efficient. That load is what teaches us alignment if we're working on alignment. So I just wanted to put that in there that, that creativity of looking for things that are more natural in our fascial lines or the fascial trains, or looking at how, we're reciprocal animals. We're a very unique animal as it goes in mammalia. We're the only mammal that has a bicurved spine. We're the only mammal that has real reciprocity in our movement, reciprocal motion in our movement. Even the primates don't have that same ability that we have of being vertical in the bicurved spine. So these are really powerful tools I'm hoping everybody's just getting a glimpse of. And I'm going to let you continue with your explanation there.
No, it's awesome. And we are so amazing that we found efficiency in our body by using this contralateral movement. No mammals can outrun us either.
Yeah.
They can run us for a while, but if we're going continuous, we're going to catch them up. That's
a squirrel's faster, but nobody has the endurance or potential that human endurance is. Yeah,
exactly. So it's so critical. All right. So then I did this, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't want to do just mat work. Then I bring the bands, and I connect it to reformer, and I did the bands from the behind. And I said, okay, this is not a part of the reformer. I need to create a reformer, gives me a big ability, gives clients environment that they could move freely. And then first connector came. First connector had 2 straps. And finally, with 2 straps, not only I could have all the existing options, still I can bend and push, go up and down, I can do circles, but now I had an option to hold one leg and move the other one independently while keeping the other leg in the action, right? This right leg, even you think, oh, it's not moving, it's only in the tabletop.
It's working.
It is actively on isometric contraction, and I call this dynamic isometric contraction, because when I bend my left limb, it gets lighter on my right leg, and when I push it out, it gets heavier. So constantly it needs to be involved and make it small adjustments to maintain their shape. Otherwise, it will move, right?
Yeah.
So this is one example. The second example, they could say, I am going to move away from each other, right? So this is a reciprocal movement pattern that we do every day. We could do straight legs. We could do bent legs. I can choose to do one straight, one bent. There is a freedom movement, once again, without losing what we love to do. But during this time, I also was very frustrated. Anytime I wanted to move up and down, I felt like the hip movement and the knee joint movement was very important for us. But the ankle movement, forget about it. Nobody uses ankles anyways. Just keep it pointed. But that wasn't the reason. The reason was equipment design. The design of equipment did not allow us to flex our foot. Because if we did flex, we're going to do this funny, kind of like a Barbie foot flex. The ankles are still plantar flex, but the toes are flexing.
Yeah.
But if you would have done truly from the ankle, we would lose the straps. So that really frustrated me. So I created a tri-loop. It is attached to the normal double loop. And now that loop goes behind the ankle, right here, behind the heel, sorry, from here. Now look at the difference. Now I can really move my ankle joint with my hip joint or with my knee joint. I mean, they need to learn how to move together. When I'm doing reciprocal movement patterns, I love this because when hip flexes, we dorsiflex. And when hip extends, we do plantar flexion
toe off.
in our gait pattern, right? So now I have two. Now I'm thinking, okay, this is working great. I love it. I'm trying to get out of this. That wasn't graceful. I wanted to pick this up. So then what I did is, what can I do to connect the full body workout? Because I was tired. I'm like thinking, why am I just working legs only? Then I take the straps in my hands and I do arms only. I wanted to integrate the full body. So then I took the bands again and I connected behind. This is cool. You guys seeing me kind of trying to do this.
And while you're connecting that, Viktor, again, just the idea that even if you were doing symmetrical movement with the limbs, the load is purely independent on the limb. So, if you have one limb that is not working well, or we're working with somebody that has dealt with hemiplegia, or somebody coming back from a hip replacement, you're going to see the difference as well would just manifest and really re-educate them, even in symmetrical motions, like doing feet and straps and arches.
Yes, and it's going to automatically adjust any symmetries. If you have a one shorter leg or one longer leg like this, they both going to get 50% weight, the load.
Yeah.
So now, Brent.
Goodbye to the days of having to adjust the straps for a shorter limb or a contracted knee or a prosthetic leg or an amputation. Now you can keep the load the same, which is great.
Or goodbye to that client. They will be like right before the exercise, this is a little shorter than the other one, and you'll make the adjustment and you'll say, how is it? Is it better? And they'll be, little bit more.
Now it's the other one. Too short.
In the days, Brent, I don't know if you ever done that. I remember, like, I will go back there and I will just make sound and I will not change anything. And I'll be, how is it now? They're like, perfect, thank you. I'm like, I knew it. I knew you were messing with me.
Yeah, that's what is that called? The P and the when they'd become so sensitive, like they could tell that there was a pea in their mattress and they, would have to adjust, kind of thing. Anyway, let's see what you got here with the arms.
So now I have a connector with two straps only. Remember, this is the days connector with two straps. And I'm thinking, why am I working just my legs? Why my arms is not in the movement? Why can I not do the full body workout? Work the upper limbs with lower limbs with the connection of the torso. So now I'm tinkering and I'm doing things like this. I'm loving it again, but my love, again, it lasts about 6 months because I say, this is great, but it is not a one system. It is not a one source of information. The bands, which is my upper arm, the limbs, did not communicate it with my lower limbs because they were using two different sources. I knew that I had to create a device that had one rope. This is very special about Konnector. It is only one rope, connects your 4 limbs. And then the Konnector came up. Now you can do arm and legs. They all can move together. They can move one at a time, single, and the other ones will hold. They could hold 2 at a time and move 2 at a time. These are all different ways to move 2 limbs. 1 can hold, 3 can move. And like I said, all 4 can move. And the best thing again, they can move all same direction together. They can move towards each other, away from each other.
Victor, one of the things that I always like so much is when you're doing something, for example, in kneeling or sitting and, sort of watching how the strap creates some of the tension on the lower extremities while the arms are moving through space or the spine's rotating. And just, for people to understand the capacity of movement integration and exploration that the Konnector provides.
Yeah, it is. It's literally an environment that lets you do what you want to do. The best way to explain, as a Pilates teacher, we all experience once or twice. We will be wanted to be creative. We get ideas and we say, okay, I want to try this with the reformer straps. We lay down and we try and we go, oh, it doesn't work. And we get disappointed. With Konnector, you move the way you want to move. I mean, I can show you some crazy exercises. Not that this is an exercise, but I'm just moving. I'm being silly without worrying about if strap is going to let me be silly. The straps is going to let me move. Instead of me adjusting my movement pattern, the strap is going to adjust the way I want to move, the way I'm moving my limbs.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the kinetic chain and what this provides for us. So when we think of learning movement, the closed kinetic chain, so where the foot or the hand is on a stable surface and the body's going to move on that, that's closed chain. And closed chain provides the greatest amount of proprioceptive feedback. So it's what, teach early on. We should use a lot of closed chain to be able to re-educate how a joint or how a muscle should organize. But 60 to 80% of our movement is open chain. So our function is open chain, right? Majority of it, other than a squat or, half of the chair going upstairs. But the majority of our movement is open chain, especially upper extremities, unless we're doing push-ups or downward dog. So you get the idea that closed chain activity is actually a very limited amount of our activity in daily life. It really is open. And open chain means just like, moving our arm, feeding ourselves, washing our hair, whatever we're going to do, right? I don't wash my hair very often, but, a little bit here. Not much of that.
I do a lot.
But, the idea is we sort of coined the phrase about 20 years ago of a pseudo-closed chain, which was the fixed arc is how we defined it. So like a bicycle has a fixed arc. It's not closed, it's not open. And then we looked at the tower bar and the foot bar on the chair, the foot pedal, right? Those are all pseudo-closed chain. They have a fixed arc. And the idea was that we could progress people to a more open chain. And then if you were working with things like long springs on the trapeze table in your feet, that also was leading more towards a pseudo open chain. But what I really appreciate about the connector really is a pseudo open chain. Like it still has the connector, so you sort of know where you are in space because of that touch and that proprioception that is coming in through the hand or the foot. But you have complete freedom to direct that movement. And so if you were thinking of specific activities or what people want to participate in, right, you could create it a lot better. Things like golf swings and things like, like I've seen you do things like golf swings where you're standing on the reformer, you have a strap around your thighs, you have a handle in between the straps, and you're having this very integrated motion that really you're just getting a one-sided load, but it's coming through all the different connections, the connector, right? But if you change your body position on the reformer, still with the same straps in hand, you've just changed where the load is coming from. And so you're gradually progressing as you rotate around to have new proprioceptive awareness of that golf swing that you're not going to get in just an open chain environment for years. It takes years to understand a very healthy golf swing, where if you can provide that proprioception into the hand or in the elbows or even into the waist or the hips or the knees or the ankles, you're going to be able to create a much better proprioception. And we've used things like this with the TheraBand that you've talked about, for years of trying to create some kind of load that provides a proprioception to movement in injured joints or re-educating people to move and perform. So to me, it's like it just is such a valuable tool in our ability to teach. And and again, we're sort of creating what I saw Shelly's on, so I'm going to give her a little shout out. But Shelly often is expressing or asking the client to express what they feel, right? So rather than us telling them, this is a glute exercise, you're going to feel this in your glutes. This is an adductor exercise, you're going to feel in your adductor. It's sort of like create the load, create the alignment, and then ask them, what do you feel? Where do you feel? How much do you feel? And let them process it. So that's called internal feedback versus us telling them what to feel or what they're going to do, right? So what's interesting with Konnector, and I would also throw the UV in here as well, is that there is a subconscious attempt to maintain a dynamic alignment while you're moving through these spaces. And there is information coming in that is willing to take you out of that dynamic alignment. Like you were saying, if you're going to hold your arm in that position, right? You hold your arm in that position, even though the load is pulling on it differently when the legs are extending and going out, you sort of have to find, how do I find that dynamic no matter what? And an exercise we used to do just to prove a point is if I told you to over-stabilize, like stabilize your body, I'm going to push you really hard, stabilize your body, you were very easy to push over because you're so rigid. There was no, right? You're just a rigid body. It's like pushing a pole over. But if you were just sort of being able to absorb that force, you could take a huge force, sort of like, I think of some of the martial art forms that are out there that really teach you how to absorb and respond and come back with that movement was the real stability.
It's the task space. You're saying don't fall. So instead of engage this, you're saying don't fall, because if I fall, I'm going to lose the game or he's going to beat me up. In martial arts, it's all about task. So, and I love that. I think if we could shift our language in movement training to task-oriented, internal feedback, spontaneous learning, playing with load variations and direction variations, the body is able to assimilate it so much better. We think of how children learn to move, right? Children don't learn to move by being told to contract a muscle. They don't know what their pelvic floor is at 1 year old, but they learn, and they learn to be efficient because there's a task that they want to do. They want to pick up that toy, or they want to eat, or they want to climb, and they figure out that task. This brings up a lot of questions, I hope, or confirmation to a lot of our participants today, and I'd love to open the floor up to questions while Viktor and I continue. And particularly our topic today is really understanding this idea of spontaneous learning, task-based learning, how to, manipulate the load. And, some people are always like, well, I can't afford the Konnector, but it's like, no, you can afford it
and you could also afford TheraBand, and you could afford. You just have to have the concept of how you're going to create that load. So that's sort of where I want to go now. How do we shift, our learning and our teaching skills to be able to optimize learning and not be so rigid about saying you have to inhale here, exhale here. You have to, tighten your quadriceps in this exercise. This exercise is a glute exercise. Well, it might not be a glute exercise for somebody that has tight hip flexors, right? It might not. It might be something else because the fulcrum's changed, the levers changed. So what you think was, a hip extension, buttocks and glute exercise might not actually be the same for somebody else based on some of their other orientations or limitations that they have.
What I wanted to mention while the question's coming, you mentioned the spring work on trapeze or, different work. One thing is with the Konnector, not only allows you basically the freedom of movement and the environment for you to basically be in touch. Because it's a one rope, it literally connects your limbs. So like a 4-spring work on trapeze table, the springs does not communicate with each other, right? So they don't know what's going on. This truly connects your limbs, and they start to create awareness that the action of other team member creates reaction from your body. And that's the magic. For example, when I was working one of my new clients, I asked them to close her arm and legs in the same time. And she did, and she slid right way, this way. So my first thing was to tell her as a Pilates teacher, engage your core, don't lean to the right, squeeze the left, press evenly. Like that was my instincts. But before I said anything, she went shh to me. And I'm like,
let me figure it out.
On?
Yeah.
And she went like this, and she went shh. And she just shaked her body like right and left. And then she started to move just fine. And she gave me a smirk like, here we go. I don't need you. I got it. I felt it. Yeah. That's the magic to me. They actually feel and they make decisions in their own body for successful movement pattern or successful task.
And that's super important because a lot of times if we're using very symmetrical systems and load that are relying on the same springs, you won't see that. That won't manifest. You won't see that asymmetry that you see with the Konnector or with that with the OOV. You see the same thing. You'll see people falling off, and you can't tell them to contract a muscle to stay on it. They have to just sort of figure it out. And that figuring out is what I would truly consider control or contrology or core control, because it is coming from within to try to figure out to have balance, right? And so there has to be that mixture of movement and control that really creates stability and that feedback that allows them to do that. You got a couple questions up, Victor. One from Andreina and one from Carmen Flores. You want to take a look at them?
All right. What are some aha moments you have seen happen with your clients? What type of feedback do you get from them?
I was trying to think of what the acronym for AHA was.
The aha moment.
No, go.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, great question, Andreina. And so for aha moment, one of the aha moments, just the one that I explained, that they take a control, they create awareness in their body so they can make a decisions. And I find myself a teacher now. I had to focus higher level corrections, cueing, planning, instead of counting the exercises every time, telling them to squeeze your glutes, extend your legs. Like it almost freed me to able to focus on what else they need. What is the next level of challenge they need? And the feedback they're getting, believe it or not, I named Konnector because from their feedback, when I created, I asked them, what do you guys feel? Number one word they used, I told them to write down, and I did the word count. Number one word they used was feel. I couldn't find any product name with feel. It did not sound appropriate. And the second word they used was connect. connecting my mind to my body. I feel my body is connected to my mind. I feel like my abs connected my arms connected to my legs. Everything was about connection. I feel like I'm connected. So I'm like, this is fantastic. So that was one of the feedback I got from them. And they feel it's fun and they feel like it's different. And funny ways, it's so similar what they do every day. But finally, in the Pilates environment, they were so used to moving like bunnies. Once they start to get that freedom, it felt to them like it is fun. But actuality, it is organic, it's functional. It's the things we do every day in our regular lives.
Yeah, it's great. Carmen's asking if you've ever worked with somebody with like a spinal cord injury or nerve injury or asymmetry, maybe even like a hemiplegia with a stroke. Have you been able to explore that a little bit? I know we've had a couple experiences with that. I'd love to hear if you've been.
No stroke. The others, all of them, yes. I had great success. And I have, instead of telling each one by one, I want to tell you during the trainings, this stories is happening to me. I'm not making up. There is more than me in the trainings. There's usually 10, 15 people are witnessing this. One of the first earliest one, the trainer instructor comes and says, I've been having an acute problem with my ankle over 10 years, so I might not able to do some of the exercises. I'm sorry, it's not you, it's me. I'm saying, oh, don't worry, take care of yourself. The first day is over. We are starting second day in the morning. I said, how do you guys feel? She raises her hand and she says, can I say something? She tells us our story. She actually went to see a doctor to ask the doctor, can you cut my ankle? Can you amputate me? Because I cannot deal with this pain anymore. She was that in pain and she was really drained. And she started to cry. She told me, first time in 10 years, I woke up and my ankle is not hurting me. And I didn't do any ankle exercises. I didn't really specifically do anything. I just did my training with connecting the limbs together. So that's one of the exercises. In Santa Barbara, I'm in the training, instructor comes in, says, I have an immune disease problem. I can only work 45 minutes to 1 hour. Then I need to go sleep and come back. Do you mind? And I'm like, of course I don't mind. Please take care of yourself. It's about the 3 to 4 hours training before the lunch. I see people almost whispering with each other and they're talking about this instructor has an immune system. It's the 3 hours she's there and she's still working. And then she realizes what's happening. She says, oh my God, I cannot believe it. Has it been 3 hours? I feel amazing and I feel energetic and obviously emotion comes out. She's crying, everybody's crying. So stories like this keep happening to me. People telling me I cannot lift my arm more than 90 degrees. I have a frozen shoulder. I said, okay, don't worry, just keep moving in that 90 degree. And they like move, and like literally 3 minutes, 5 minutes, they're like, so why this feels good, but I don't know. And I'm like, do you see where your arm is? And they look at it and they start to cry again. They're like, why this is happening? So yes, there's a lot of stories, a lot of instances that people come into this training or try to connect. They're saying, I cannot do this. And then suddenly becomes, yes, I can do this.
Yeah. And I was just going to mention on the neurological ones that Carmen was asking too is, and it goes right back to that word connection, right? So we often, when we have a problem, when we have an infarct in our brain and it causes a stroke on the other side, we have this, impairment or this lack of awareness, we can create information to come back in and to re-educate. So we have to assume or believe in neuroplasticity at a whole, that our body can re-educate and relearn. And it comes down to making connections, right? So there's feedback coming in. And I think this answers, let's see, it was another question that came up. I think it was Lisa McDonald's question, looking at with scoliosis and those kind of things. It's,
yes.
The body is trying to find an equilibrium. It's our nature, right? So when we have an injury, we have a disconnect quite often. And then we treat the injury as if it's a separate part of the body. So if you've ever had surgery, I remember, Victor, when you came back after your surgery, right away, it was sort of like, is that my knee? Is that still my knee? And then within a month, it was your knee. You knew it was your knee, right? You had re-educated it. So it's a common thing if we disassociate a pathology or an injury from the body, somewhere along the way, we have to reconnect it to the body, right? And that's where a lot of this spontaneous learning and sort of, I should say, probably the better word is subconscious. You just create a task, you get them doing the task, and pretty soon they realize that. We do that with the tower bar with shoulder girdle problems all the time, right? They think that they can't lift their arm up over their head. We hook them onto the tower bar sprung from above and tell them, pull down, just pull down, just keep pulling down. All of a sudden they're doing, oh, I'm pulling down. And then they realize their arm is up high again, right? Where it hadn't been for, months. Or we mobilize a fibula and all of a sudden they can walk without any knee pain. So in a lot of our teaching, and this is sort of the beauty of what we do in Pilates movement, because it's built in the philosophy to be whole body, whole mind, whole spirit, right? And we're integrating and we're learning how to control it, right? That doesn't mean that we make it rigid. We took a really bad turn for about 20 years of thinking core control. That was a huge mistake. Core control interferes with connectivity. Just have control, right? Have control of your limbs in space. So I love the stories because we see it all the time, is that when we create opportunities for people to have fun and move and what we often refer to in Polestar as positive movement experiences, you see the nervous system adapts. And we know that the neuroplasticity takes place during their sleep. So they have this great movement session, they sleep, they have neuroplasticity, hopefully for the better, and they come back and they keep repeating that. And that's that procedural learning that Joseph said, if you practice contrology every day, you're going to have a better quality of life. A couple more questions. Let's keep going. We got some questions popping up.
I found two questions that I could answer together.
Perfect.
One of them says, what the effect does Konnector and have OOF on clients with scoliosis? Does it help with imbalances created by scoliosis or just create frustration? And the second question, dancers think most of the time that they know their body, but actually they are cheating. How can you deal with those people? Can you help them to become really aware of what they are doing without any discussion? Beautiful. So for me, scoliosis and dancers, pretty much one thing they common, they both master of cheating, compensation. They learn how to create a specific task by compensating. So the scoliosis patient, they become master, especially if they are movers, to look straight, to look even. They start to use their environment to rely, fix ropes to create success. With Konnector, I take their option of the fixed rope. So they cannot rely on the fixed rope to lean with specific side and create the appropriate movement. Symmetry or correct movement pattern. It is so common, the good mover scoliosis will try Konnector. In 5 minutes, they'll be like, what's wrong? I feel here instead of there, and I will never feel here. Why am I feeling here? Well, welcome to environment that doesn't let you cheat and encourages you to use correct muscle groups in order to do the task that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And same thing with the dancers.
Yeah. You have a couple of positive shout outs here. One, Andre is just saying it comes to show how our body is our best medicine and we just aren't using it to its full advantage because we become so disconnected. And I happen to know that Andre also is working with another body system that has a lot of similarities to what you're, purporting with the Konnector, and that it really has made a big difference in having that freedom of movement.
I love what she says. It's the environment that we actually adjust and we learn and we adapt.
And then Shelley said, that is so true, Victor. The ideas of exploration, I just got pushed out of there, of exploration are so important because we all experience things differently. And with that, we can start to find better patterns and strategies. So it's like the idea of exploration. Sometimes we get so caught up in a particular way that it actually should be. It has to be this way, that we don't explore it. And one thing that comes to my mind was when Shelley started breaking all the rules of things like arm arcs and saying, let your ribs come up, or going into side kick and let your spine move. What does that feel like? Then make your spine not move and then let it move and see what happens, right? And it was like we weren't going to hurt anybody. If anything, we were going to do quite the opposite. We were exploring connectivity and realizing, when your leg moves into flexion, your spine moves into flexion too. When your leg goes into extension, it goes into extension. And to have that experience and then to see, where is that movement coming from? If we isolate movement in one part of the body, how does it affect another part of the body? And that exploration was really powerful because some people were realizing, I have a lot of mobility, but I don't have control. Or I don't have any mobility in my shoulders, and I was relying on movement in my spine to lift my arms up over my head. Now we know we can work on increasing that mobility. So some cool feedback there. We're just about out of time. I see a couple other questions, and I saw Bhavini's question to you, which I was sort of hoping maybe we can finish up with you doing an example in standing or kneeling with the connector. You want to do that?
Just to start her question, she asked, can we use the connector with the box? So any strap, remember, connector reformer, I really want you to be in peace with this. Connector reformer is your original reformer. So I want to ask you back, Bhavini, can you do any back work with your original reformer? Box work with the original reformer? And the answer is yes. So if you could do it with the original reformer, anything you could do, you get to do it with connector. But you have more options to add. For example, since we were talking about the box work, this is most common box exercises that we can do, but we have freedom of movement possibilities. We could do, these are some of the exercises we do with box. Now I could actually integrate the full body. So I can actually put the straps on my legs. This is never done with the regular original repertoire, but again, you have an option now to do it. And I can take the other straps in my hands. Now I am integrating just my arms if I want, my legs if I want, my arms and my legs together. I can do oppositional contralateral. Literally freedom of movement, all the exercises that we love, that we like, you have more options.
Yeah. Awesome, Viktor. We're out of time. I do want to thank everybody for participating in your comments. One thing that Viktor and I want to let everybody know is that in our collaboration, we do have a weekend of training that is going to be in North Carolina at the farm. And that's coming up, I believe, are we in June? When's the dates on that?
June 2nd, 3rd, and if the education is tracked, June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Right. So one of the things we've been doing is a lot of the Polestar educators that have chosen to become Konnector educators have connected with Viktor, and we've been working with them, and now the COVID's gone and we're back in the groove again. We have a formal training for anybody and everybody that wants to train for a couple days. And if you are a Polestar educator or you have an interest in being a Konnector educator, you can let us know. And again, you'd go through the training and then we'd stay after and do the more intense educator training to be able to reproduce Viktor's work in workshops or other introductory courses. So this is a great opportunity. We'll be sending out all of the links for that inside the post-production. So if you didn't jot it down now, it's okay. It'll come out in a post link. And join us, connect with us at the farm, and be with Viktor. We have 10 Allegros that are all outfitted with the Konnector here, and excited to have, we can handle up to 30 people if we need to with that kind of volume that we have here in the farm, and enjoy the beautiful
16 hours, and they get 16 PMA credits and
That's right.
PCP.
Well, very good, Viktor. Thank you so much. And you're always such a beautiful performer and mover. And I know that I would not look as graceful with all 4 straps going, but I do love the feedback that comes into my body from the Konnector, and can't
That's
promote
what
it.
matters the most.
Can't promote it enough. I think it's just really important to realize how certain tools can really enhance learning, and that's really what we're looking at doing. And we're, Polestar, we just want to keep making it more effective and improve the outcome. And you certainly have done that for us, Viktor. So thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Please share the links with your friends. We'd love to have more joining us for the Pilates Hour. And our goal is to bring physical, mental, and emotional alignment to the world. And we do that one day at a time. Most importantly, be kind. Thank you, Viktor. And we'll see you shortly.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.